21 loser. Keg stands to chasing girls. Probably alone in your dorm room, being a penal abuser. Me, I'm not doing keg stands. No standing here, bro. Oh, not chasing no one either. And I've got a good reason, because I'm professional. I'm a knife maker. You spent all day high as a kite. I spend all day in the shop and making steel shine bright. Sweat formed on my brow, but you don't understand how to work till you bleed, to pay your dues, to gain the respect you need. Flat grinding away, hands sanding all day. Bitch, I got bills to pay. Honing my craft, busting my ass while you raft on the river vacation with your parents that pay your insurance and hand feed you when you need. I got the talent to succeed. You just sat on the couch waiting for life to come to you. I'm making my way so I don't have to expect that. To me, a damn things do.
Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Jim, and it's good to see you. We're going to be taking a look at a relatively new knife maker today, and this is something that I have always maintained that I absolutely love to do here on my channel, is to spread the word about new makers that you don't know about yet that are talented or have something special going for them. This is going to be a knife from Fox River Blades, who is Jaden Schubert, a 21-year-old new knife maker out of Wisconsin. Now, for people, can't wait to pull this out. For those of you that remember the many fidget and spin top videos that I did many years ago, talking about my appreciation for the high-end machining and all the detail work and all that kind of cool stuff, you'll remember my good friend Rich Stadler. Rich, who along with his family owns Billet Spin, he's the one that introduced me to Jaden's work in a roundabout sort of way. He would message me every now and then and ask me for some knife making advice to give to whom he referred to at the time was a family friend. Turns out it was his daughter's boyfriend, and I think now they're engaged, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong, well, whoops. I guess you better make that move now, Jaden. She's expecting it, so go seal the deal, bro. Jaden is 21 years old, and he has decided to try his hand at custom knife making. And I got to tell you, when holding this knife, I have a hard time looking at the knives that I made in my first year because they weren't nearly this good. It took me a while to get my fundamentals where they needed to be, and then to start working on finer details like he's already gotten into here. I like this knife a lot, and the more I look at it, there's a lot of little things here that I can see as a knife maker myself are super big annoyances, like working with black G10 and then using white G10 for the liners. It looks really striking. It looks really good. But what you don't know unless you're making the knife is what a sloppy, ugly, disgusting looking pain in the ass this really is the entire time you're making it. Because it's impossible to keep that white looking white while you're working with it. And it gets to the point you're almost done with the knife, and there's still nasty blackness all through these white liners. And it's really at that last step when you're cleaning everything up and you're finalizing that finish around your perimeters that you're able to finally clean that and get the nastiness off of there. Now, usually I'm doing it with carbon fiber because I'm not a big G10 fan. I have worked with G10. It's just not one of my preferred handle materials. And I know that it would just get in the lighter colored liners like that and just make them disgusting. And it was usually a little more work than I would have appreciated at the very end to clean it all up and make sure everything looked nice and perfectly white. And he's done a great job here. Another thing that I want to call out is one of the big mistakes that new knife makers make when they're making their fixed blades is they tend to just kind of end the scale fronts straight, and they don't taper them, they don't contour them. It's just a 90-degree just drop off, like a ledge. and it's terrible. What he's done here is he has tapered the scale fronts, which is something that I do, that is a huge, huge, huge deal. Number one, for comfort as you're gripping the knife. Number two, you don't have a harsh edge and corner there. And no matter how thick or thin your scales are, it's less noticeable up here. Because let me tell you something, if you're doing something where you're making a knife for a client who has big hands, so you're going to make very, very thick scales, if they're just coming out straight and they stop and there's no shape to them at all you see is this ugly block, this ugly corner at the end, and it looks terrible. He's done a great job of tapering these down to the blade, and it looks really, really good. It's also very comfortable. He's done a great job on his contouring, too. Not only is it comfortable, but there's no faceting, there's nothing else. So he's learned the art of getting this shape probably, hopefully done initially on his grinder, and then sitting down by hand and finishing the contours by hand because it feels perfect. There's not a single hot spot anywhere, but he still maintained a crisp line at the edges on the perimeters of the scales. So it's not just like this shapeless blob. And that's something else that you fight as a new maker. Well, I don't like how harsh that feels, so I'm going to overly round it, and I'm going to call it contoured, but then it has almost no shape to it. It's this amorphous thing stuck onto the side of my steel blade, and it looks like crap. Well, which is worse? That blob shapeless thing or having a bunch of hot spots all over it? And you have to make that decision until you learn that fine line, and he very clearly has. Very nicely done. The only thing that I like here is the recesses and finger choils that he's done here in the handle. He's done them in the right places where it's not just choking up one finger. You can get your two primary fingers for control up here, and then back here to maintain your grip. It's just got a nice gentle curve here to hold your pinky on, and it feels nice in the hand. One small critique I would have in that arena, and it's something that took me a long time to learn as well, is to just soften these edges right here, because your finger's going to go up in there, and if there's any movement at all, it's going to start digging into somebody's hand. So just taking off that harsh edge right there is really all that needs to be done. Everything else was done to darn near perfection. I like the shape that he chose for the front of the scales. It looks really, really good. Overall, the aesthetics of the design are fantastic. The ergonomics are nice as well. Now, I have really, really large hands, so this is a little tiny for me. But again, this is meant to be a small, more or less of an EDC style knife that's easier to carry around. So in that vein, I am perfectly fine with that. This is definitely something that I would carry. I actually have a knife sitting over here off to the side I'm going to grab real quick as an example. One of the fixed blades I carry often that was made by a very good friend of mine, Alex Harrison, with Night Watch Knives, is relatively the same size, and I like how that fits in the hand because I want it to be that small. And as a matter of fact, one of the things I like is he's definitely doing the same kind of thing here to relieve for the grip. I really like that. And realize Alex has been making knives for a number of years. Jaden is brand new at this, and he's already picking up on these stylistic cues that work well into the ergonomics as well. So yeah, I like a smaller knife like this sometimes if I'm going to EDC it. So having that smaller handle on there is perfectly fine, totally acceptable, and something that I would expect. So that's not a critique on this knife or this design, because I want it to be small for something to carry. And this is definitely a knife that I would carry as well. But this is not mine. This is getting sent right back to Jaden. I had made the offer to Rich to let him know, hey, after seeing pictures of it, I couldn't believe how nice it came out. I'm like, hey, I want to see one of those. I want to kind of fondle it and see, what he's doing here. And if it's up to snuff, I'd love to review it and let other people see the nice work that he's doing. And as soon as I unzipped that case, I went, wow, yeah, there definitely has to be a video. People do have to see this, because is he doing things as perfect as a maker that's been doing this for a decade or longer? No. But he has got his fundamentals down. There are no hot spots. All of the materials fit properly the way that they should. He's got clean finish work here. He spent time doing a hand rub satin finish on this blade. He has cleaned up all of his perimeters very, very well. He's contoured things nicely. He's using nice hardware. He's using thong tubes here, which are pass-throughs, so you can run a lanyard off the back here if you want to. So if you do have a big monster bare hand, bigger than mine, you could make a knotted lanyard hanging off the back for about 2 or 3 inches. And so if your pinky's hanging off, it would curl up in there and you would use that for stability. It's really, really well done. Everything that a new maker would need to address has already been addressed here. His plunges look really good. I'm going to kind of focus in on that. His symmetry is really good. And this is something that's difficult to teach people. So he's grinding everything with a good degree of symmetry. Yeah, you could tell he's one hand dominant over the other. So let's see, he's probably left hand dominant, because he's coming in just a little bit sharper on this side. Come on and focus. Is it better if I do it that way? There we go. So he's coming in just a little bit faster on this side than he is on this side, but they're beginning and terminating at the same places on each side, so that's really, really good. If it was me, I like swedges. I would probably be cutting a swedge into here. It's going to give it a little bit more of an aggressive look. It's going to take a little bit of weight off the top, even though it does have a nice distal taper toward the tip of the blade. Again, another thing that I like a lot. And it would relieve the edge that you have here on the spine of the blade. Now, again, that's not a bad thing. Here's a little bit of the same thing here on Alex's knife. But if you notice, you see how the steel is a little bit whiter in this area than it is elsewhere? It's because he went back over it probably with just a Scotch-Brite pad very softly and just broke that edge a little bit so it's a little bit softer. And it's just little tiny things like that that aren't a concern at all for anyone that's going to be using the knife. But as you progress through the years and become a knife maker that's making knives for collectors, for people that are making some sort of investment and holding on to these for a good long time, it's those teeny little details that you begin to focus on after you've gotten your fundamentals down. And for most makers, it can take years to get those fundamentals down. And there are some little hurdles that will trip over repeatedly from knife to knife, week to week, month to month, year to year for the first 2, 3, 4 years. And then you hit your stride. And then you can stop at the end and look at your knife before you start adding embellishments and just look at the basic build of the knife and go, I've gotten to that point now. Everything is the way I want it. All my contouring is perfect. There's no faceting. Everything is symmetrical from one side to the next, which is another tricky thing when you're shaping your handles by hand, is to get the thicknesses perfectly even and to have the symmetry in how these are shaped. Doing that from one side to the next can be tricky. And he's gotten all these fundamentals down. He's got a sharpening notch in there, which is a really, really smart idea, especially for a knife like this that you can tell is made to be used. It's a design that's made to be used. So people are going to want to resharpen that blade often. Now, a sharpening notch is not a requirement. And for somebody that doesn't suck at sharpening, they're not usually going to bitch and scream about not having a sharpening choil. When you see somebody jumping up and down about a knife not having a sharpening notch, it's because they're not really very good at resharpening knives. This is done really well, and it's made for the end user to have a good experience as well. So, as far as the overall design, I like it. It's clean, it's classic, it's not breaking any new ground, but it is a clean, classic design. It's a nice, classic drop point. I like the overall look. I like the size, which I should probably give you the full-on specs. You're looking at 7.5 inches in overall length. And the blade, I'm going to call 3.25 inches because I'm measuring it from tip to the end of the scale front. That's 3.25 inches. You're getting a little bit more if you measure all the way back here. And you're getting just a touch over 3 inches of cutting edge there. And you're looking at Nitro V steel here. Black G10 scales over white G10 liners, and also looks like black G10 liners as well. I think he did a double liner job on this, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, so there's your scale, there's your white liner, and there's your black liner. Nice little G10 sandwich. Very, very well done. Anyway, back to Jaden very quickly. As I mentioned, he's 21. He's from Wisconsin. He was paralyzed in a car accident in 2021 that left him in a wheelchair for the foreseeable future, as he puts it. Hopefully that's not going to be a permanent thing. And this was something I didn't want to bring up until the very tail end of the video because I really want you to appreciate the knife for the work that was put into it and not just go, wow, he's doing really good for somebody that's in a wheelchair. No. He's doing good for somebody that's as young as he is and starting out as recently as he has as a knife maker. And his goal right now is to turn this into a full-time gig where he could be a full-time knife maker, and that is a difficult thing to accomplish, and I hope that he is able to do that. He grew up close to the Stadlers, and Rich is essentially his mentor when it comes to stuff like this. And Rich was the one that pushed him into making an Instagram page and told him, start posting your work, let people see it, get the feedback from people, see how people react to it, and then you know if you've got a good product or not. Now, Rich has told me over time that Jaden's got very high work ethic and that he hasn't had to give him very much input as far as his workmanship is concerned. You know, he told him, hey, whatever you do, don't just stop at the basics, focus on the details. That's what's really going to sell the product. And Jaden ran with it. And the way that I see it is Rich helped him get the ball rolling, but it was Jaden and his work ethic that has had him evolving through his own series of successes and failures, which, as I've always said, is the key to knife making. You learn from your mistakes, not just how not to make the same mistake again, but how to adapt and improvise to salvage the project in front of you now that you've made that mistake. So it's a lot of trial and error when you're a knife maker. And even if you've been doing it for decades upon decades, mistakes are going to happen. Shit's going to happen. I've talked to knife makers that were seriously at the top of their game, really great knife makers, and they're sitting there at the end on a finished knife that they have 30, 40, 50 hours worth of work into it, and they're polishing it and they're cleaning it, and they drop it on the shop floor and they tip it and bend or break the tip and end up having to remake the blade, or if it's a fixed blade, having to remake the entire damn knife. Mistakes happen at any level of this game, and you have to know how to overcome that mistake to salvage the project that you're working on and learn from that mistake so that you don't do it again in the future. Same can be said for putting the tip of a knife through your hand. You learn how to properly hand rub after that. You learn the direction that you want to be doing it in, and you also learn how to clamp that blade down a lot better before you start hand rubbing it. That was a seriously bad day for me. So, all in all, I think for a new maker, he's doing really good, clean work. He's focusing on the details, and he's putting out something that's nice and high quality. I don't know what he charges yet, so I can't tell you if it's worth the money. I have no clue what this knife is worth, what he charges, but that's between you and him at the time that you go to place an order. And I highly suggest that you start watching his Instagram and look at the work that he's doing. And if what you see impresses you, if what you see is something that you want to have in your own collection, reach out to him and maybe discuss a build. With that, I'm going to leave you guys for now. Thank you so much for joining me as always, and I'll see you on the next video.